right, guys, we're live on YouTube, so I'm going to kick this show off. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining. This is the HuddleCam HD Pro launch party. I'm joined with some awesome guests today. What is the HuddleCam HD Pro? It's our brand new webcam. This webcam comes in 2 flavors, and someone today is going to win one. Let me show you guys this new camera close up. We're super excited about these. This is an NDI camera from HuddleCam HD that's power over Ethernet and features NDI, but there's also a USB version which features HDMI. We're going to go over all the awesome parts of this webcam line from HuddleCam HD. Plus, I want to introduce you guys to the idea of electronic pan tilt zoom, which brings PTZ-like features to a webcam. I have a group of awesome people here with me today who all have the HuddleCam HD Pro. Guy Cochran's joining us from Washington. How you doing, Guy?
Doing great, doing well. This image is actually a Panasonic S1H. I do have the webcam right here, but for right now, just because my setup has a teleprompter and all this crazy stuff, you might notice it looks pretty sharp and there's some like shallow depth of field back there. But yeah, thank you for sending one. The thing is awesome. I love it. I mean, no mechanical moving parts, and it's just cool. I have already some customers that I want to put it at. In fact, one's coming over today so they can borrow it and put it at their place and test it out. So I'm super pumped.
That is awesome. I'm so glad to have everybody here. Can everybody introduce themselves? Because we got a lot of awesome guests today who all actually have the HuddleCam HD Pro. So it's kind of going to be a cool live experiment. We're all using Zoom. Who wants to start?
I'll go. I'm Julia Sherwin. I work with Paul, and I do have the HuddleCam new camera here. It's the Pro version, so it's the USB version.
Thanks for joining, Julia.
I'm Tom White. I am an educator in Georgia teaching video production, and I too have the camera and have already used it for a couple of meetings this morning.
Sweet. Who's that fancy guy in the middle? Or sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, yeah. I'm Jeff Stansfield with Advantage Video Systems, Esports Circus. I've got the new NDI one right here, and up here, this is the USB version right there. We just plugged it in yesterday, so we haven't had a lot of chance to use it. I used it on a Zoom call yesterday, but we have a whole bunch of production equipment. I have my digital 32 mixer here, Black Magic switcher there, HyperDex, scopes. We have our rack with everything from Teranex to 4K switchers there and all that stuff. And of course, we have our PTZ Optics camera behind me. And so I got the new Black Magic Pro version of the mixer. So
cool.
That's cool. We just got that in last week. And so we've been having fun playing with that. This is my toy factory, babies.
I love it. It looks awesome. And we just got joined by Michael Lisi calling in from Wolf Vision. Hi, Michael.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here. Good to see you.
Thank you for joining us. So excited for today's show. I have a little tiny presentation, and I'm going to pull that up now. This is really a crazy time for video conferencing and online communications. And so many folks are asking themselves, am I ready? Am I prepared to do online meetings professionally, to make video content? My heart goes out to the K through 12 teachers right now who are being forced to reinvent their education process for distance learning. But literally this affects everyone. And I'm so excited to have a camera that is being used for esports with NDI and IP video production, but really just not very expensive. It's only $299 and really bringing a new level of production value to almost any live streaming, recording, and video production software. So we're going to dig into that today. We've got a live Zoom call. The password is HC-Pro if you'd like to join us and ask some questions. But I want to introduce the product very quickly and then play our brand new setup video that's going to take you into some of the features. And then we've got some great guests here today who are going to talk about how they're using the camera and maybe give us a little bit of a live demo remotely over zoom. So these are some pictures from a customer of ours, Ryan Brenneman, who uses his PTZ Optics camera with a HuddleCam HD Pro. He's saying that it's a really great affordable option at $299 to add a 4K camera source to his video production. You can see here he's using the HDMI video output, and he was using it with vMix, which we're going to show today. vMix has some really cool 4K video production systems. So the USB version, starting at just $299, has USB 3 and HDMI. And as Jeffrey mentioned, that really popular Blackmagic ATEM Mini for just, I think it's $399, maybe $299. It's a 4-input HDMI switcher. We've tested it. It works great. The camera also includes something called UVC camera controls. So that allows you to control the camera with zoom. So I can actually request to control any of our the cameras for any of our guests here in Zoom, which will be kind of cool. We'll show that off. Plus, it can be controlled with our brand new HuddleCamHD control software as well, and we'll show that off. The cameras feature ePTZ camera presets. And so essentially, it's like having a PTZ camera in the form factor of a webcam. So it's really powerful, and it's not going to zoom in 100 feet away like a 30x camera could, but it is going to provide some really cool features. Another feature for conference rooms and training spaces is called auto framing. And this camera will actually automatically frame subjects in view. And there's Tess, my co-host, who's expecting a baby any day now, sitting next to Julia, who's helping us here doing our moderation for the show. And you can see when myself and another person leaves the room, the camera automatically reframes the subject. Julia leaves and it zooms more in on Tess. So it's a great example there. This is the world's first NDI webcam, and we've been getting a ton of interest about this. In fact, I hate to say they're actually currently sold out right now because they literally all of them sold, but we have more coming in, obviously. Skype, GoToMeeting, WebEx, all of that is possible over NDI using something called a virtual webcam. There's also tons of great NDI integrations with Wirecast and vMix and OBS, even the Apple TV. So very interesting stuff going on. And you can use your local area network to bring the NDI webcam into lots of different applications using virtual webcam sources and other applications. Now, to give you an example of ePTZ, essentially you have a very wide angle field of view. And you have the ability to use digital pan tilt zoom in a unique way. In fact, on our website, and I should mention that today we are giving away a HuddleCamHD Pro today, but you can use the included IR remote and many other features to zoom in. And there's a little chart here that kind of shows you how it works. So it starts at 108-degree field of view, which is really wide. But as you start to zoom in, it basically, you get a more narrow field of view, but you actually get to zoom in and it scales to the video output that you have selected. So even at 3x digital zoom, you're still maintaining a 720p HD video feed. So we really think this is kind of like the new style of getting the most out of a 4K output while still maintaining the ability to have a high definition video feed. And then we'll look at this little controller as well. So we think it's great for, mini bands and yoga studios and all kinds of different scenarios. So with that being said, Michael, do you want to roll our quick little video, our quick little setup video? Let's do it. When you first receive your camera, read through the included Quick Start Guide. The Quick Start Guide is also available for download at HuddleCamHD.com/resource-library. When you first open the box, you will find the camera, a Quick Start Guide, a USB 3.0 cable, an IR remote control, and 2 AAA batteries. Note, this camera is powered via USB. If you only plan on using the HDMI connection, you will need to have this camera connected to a USB power source. Start by opening the back of your IR remote control and insert the included AAA batteries. Next, take the included USB 3.0 cable and plug it into your computer and the back of the camera. Plug the rectangular Type A connector into your host computer and plug the square Type B connector into your camera. Next, you can mount your camera to a tripod or wall mount using the 1/4-20 connection port on the bottom of the camera to securely fasten the camera down. Or you can use the monitor clamp to securely attach the camera to any monitor or LCD display. Once your camera is connected to your computer and set up in an ideal location, it's time to use your camera with a video conferencing, production, or recording software application. Using your preferred software application, you will notice that you have a webcam source option called HuddleCamHD. Select this option and see that your camera's video feed will be available to your chosen video software. You can now use your included IR remote control with your camera. You can use it to zoom in slow or fast. You can use the buttons on your IR remote control to control the zoom and camera at different speeds. Once the camera has zoomed in, you can pan and tilt using the up, down, left, right directional pad buttons. You can set an EPTZ camera preset by moving to a specific location and pressing the preset button on the IR remote control and choosing a number to save that unique preset to. You can recall this preset simply by pressing the number you have chosen. In this way, you can set up multiple EPTZ camera presets and recall them with your IR remote control or the HuddleCamHD software. Other software and hardware applications can also be used to control your camera. But note, if your software supports UVC camera controls, it will most likely work. Software such as Zoom video conferencing and vMix have already been tested. Check out our website for the latest information about camera control integrations with industry partners. Next, you should familiarize yourself with the OSD, on-screen display menu of your camera. It is here where you can reach all of the fine-tuned settings that your camera is capable of using. You can view the OSD menu by pressing the menu button on your IR remote control. Here you can adjust exposure settings to fine-tune shutter speed, aperture, gain, dynamic range compensation. Next, you can adjust the color settings. One useful white balance mode is the one push feature you can use to quickly have the camera calculate your room's white balance for the camera. If you happen to know the color temperature of the lighting in your space, you can use the VAR mode to select a color temperature to match your camera's white balancing with the Kelvin from 2500 Kelvin to 8000. You can also fine-tune your camera's image settings for sharpness and even flip the image vertically or horizontally. The settings area is where you can fine-tune your camera's EPTZ and auto framing features. By default, EPTZ is set on, and the zoom limit is set from 1 to 3x. Check out the chart below to see the resolutions that you will be working with at various EPTZ zoom levels. You will have the following options for limiting your EPTZ zoom levels: 1x to 3x, 1x to 4x, 1x to 8x, and more zoomed in options that start by default at 2x to 4x, 2x to 8x, and 3x to 8x. Depending on your project, you may want to limit the zoom ranges to maintain a specific video resolution from your camera. In the settings area, you can also change the HDMI video output resolution. The HDMI 1.4 video output supports resolutions up to 4K 30. To use the HDMI video output, you simply need to connect your camera to any HDMI input or display using an HDMI cable. Note, you may need to change your HDMI video output setting to match the monitor you are working with. DVI mode uses RGB color encoding, while HDMI uses YUV color encoding. You can always set your camera back to default settings using the IR remote shortcut *6. More useful IR shortcuts can be found on the second page of the camera datasheet. Auto framing for this camera is set to off by default. In the settings area of the OSD menu, you can turn this feature on. When you are first setting up this camera for auto framing, you can use the demo mode to see the logic the camera is using to automatically frame the subject. During demo mode, you can see red boxes around objects that it considers a face. This is an easy way to quickly see the faces that the camera detects in the room for auto framing. Best practices for setting up a camera for auto framing include: make sure your participants are in a well-lit area, a solid background is behind the participants, which can improve performance, and subjects must sit at a sufficient distance from the camera. We recommend a minimum distance of 2.3 feet or 0.7 meters. If you are ready to turn on auto framing, you can do so in the settings area of the OSD menu. Finally, you may want to download the HuddleCamHD camera control software, available at HuddleCamHD.com. This application allows you to control the EPTZ camera from any Windows or Mac computer. When you open this application, click the settings cog in order to set up your camera for control. Click the UVC radio button to control your USB connected HuddleCamHD Pro. Then select the HuddleCamHD camera in the drop-down menu. You can also set up this application to run in administrator mode and also run at startup. You can also create a preset for the camera to call and choose the pan and tilt zoom speeds. Once you click apply, you can use this application to control your HuddleCamHD Pro. If you have any issues during the setup process of your HuddleCamHD EPTZ camera, please contact support at the phone number listed on HuddleCamHD's website or submit a ticket at help.huddlecamhd.com. Okay.
Nice work.
We're back. So I don't like rolling long videos like that all the time during a live show, but hey, we spent a lot of time on that video. What'd you guys think?
Awesome.
I like it.
I'm excited to see these things out in the field, not only just for the traditional way that we would think of a webcam, just with a person or in a conference room, but as soon as shelter in place is done, I mean, I could think of this thing going into encoders remotely and setting up for a sporting event, for example, having like 3 of them at a sporting events where you just deploy 3 encoders with 3 cameras, and then remotely you're controlling switching and maybe even zoom, and of course the pan and the tilt. So very cool device. I mean, congrats to the team for coming up with a cool device that's going to solve some problems.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's so many options for this camera. Tom White is with us today, and he is actually from a school in the Georgia area. And Tom actually is the head of an esports club. Tom, do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience?
I've used it so far with the lockdown. We haven't done a lot of esports, but I have used it in my classroom because there are certain things you just have to have the ability to zoom and move your shot around, teaching how to set up a tripod. Actually working with our band director now, he is doing marching band camp virtually. So for him to be able to zoom in on his face while he's driving something home, and then to zoom back out so that you can see his feet. So he's showing technique. So a lot of applications so far, really excited to hopefully get to use it with our esports stuff. It'd just be a great addition to what we do with our gameplay in a much simpler way, and not have to set up a specific camera and then an encoder to come back and be able to just mount this on top of the monitor while the students are playing.
Yeah, and I'm interested to work with you more too on the NDI version of this camera, which I know is popular in esports. In fact, Kyle Gunderman from the Griswold School District in Griswold, Connecticut's with us today. Kyle, it looks like you're in a virtual set, and I understand Kyle has been using the NDI version of this camera.
Yep, I'm using it right now for this, and I'm sitting in my home studio, which is the back corner room. So I didn't want to show the clutter, so that's why I'm in the virtual set. But I'm really looking forward to trying to use this camera for like a behind the goal for a soccer game or behind the backboard for a basketball game. That's where I'm really thinking this is going to be cool.
Oh, I see. So you've already kind of got a video production system, and you want to just have an easy Ethernet kind of camera to put up as a secondary shot.
Yeah, the fact that it's PoE, just one cable to, running behind the basketball backboard would be really nice and solve a lot of problems.
So I'd like to show off a cool feature with these cameras, which is the remote camera control in Zoom. And Chris, I'm going to choose you to do this too, if that's okay.
Disregard the junk.
So you see this little request camera control button. I'm going to hit that there. And what that should do, once Chris enables it, is now I can zoom out, first of all, to show how wide the angle it is. And you can see those little buttons there. So I've got full PTZ control through Zoom. And Chris, I won't zoom in on your face because I don't want to be mean to you there. But I like that. Right. What about that helmet over there?
Oh, my custom painted Stormtrooper that I made.
Cool. I like it. So I can see right now, Chris, that you have this camera set to a 3x digital zoom limit. So I could probably zoom all the way into that if you had it on the 8x digital zoom limit. But it's interesting to put it at 3x because that limits it to 720p. And Zoom, is barely 720p. It can do 720p, but right now with all of the internet traffic, it's not even doing 720. It's probably 640 right now.
Well, right. It's like getting a new car. You can't drive 55 the first 500 miles. So I'm just going to put a limiter on it, or else you'd be zooming in on my back wall, man. It's
okay.
And seeing that I have a mess back there. I hate I'm the AV guy in the group who actually has done the installs and do that sort of stuff. So I have kind of weird kind of tech throughout my office, and I'm glad you can't zoom in and see the spools of cables and stuff that I'm trying to tuck underneath my desk. I represent the corporate side. So for me, this HuddleCam brings in a nice opportunity for the conference rooms, because that's 90% of what these cameras are going to do. Right now, they're living in a work from home application, and it's very focused in on me. And I love the fact that I can zoom in. Having that super wide angle doesn't really do the justice. You want to kind of focus in on the person. But when this finally goes back to where it is going to live inside corporate spaces, the auto framing is the nice feature that really comes into play, because now it's not so much mechanical parts moving back and forth. It's now the digital zoom that's going in and out of the people that are sitting across in different tables. And with social distancing coming into play, people are going to be sitting further apart. Getting that closer, tighter shot is going to be more important. Leaving a super wide angle is just going to make everybody look like they're sitting in a cave. So really looking forward to seeing this in action in the conference room, where people are now being seated in separate or wider spaces.
I love that perspective. I'm trying to figure out who I should pick on next as far as zooming in. I'm thinking, Julia, since I'm going to choose you next, if that's okay.
That's okay. That's all right. If you look really closely, there's a swear jar behind me.
Okay, I'm going to try to find that. So again, I won't zoom in right on your face because I don't want to do that to you. But
this could actually be a really fun game, like a.
Where's Waldo?
Exactly.
Right.
Like you have to call into someone else's site and try and find the book by Moby Dick.
See what you can find.
What you can do is, if you zoom in too much on your face, you can always pick up a good book.
I like it. Now, Julia, I think you have it limited to 3x as well. I'm not sure if anyone else has it on 8x.
Must be the default, Paul, because I did not adjust that. So
okay, let's see. Let's try this with Jeffrey over here. Jeffrey, do you mind approving my request here? All right, let's see what Jeffrey lets us do. Oh, yep, you've got it on the 3x too, and that's totally fine. Jeffrey, look at this place, man. Wow.
not only does he get the best looking cockpit looking thing. I mean, the guy looks like he's sitting at the Millennium Falcon, but you went for an award for the best dress. Why didn't you tell me to dress up for this, Paul? You just told me to show up.
I was thinking the same thing.
Jeez. I could have came in a blow up dinosaur uniform, something to stand out a little bit. I mean, geez.
Yep. Jeff always comes prepared. I'll tell you that. Look at that wide angle view of this room, Jeff. It's a cool space.
That is awesome.
So now I think there is one camera here that does have the 8X. Actually, Michael, can you show us yours? So there's one more I want to show before and we'll open those up to Q&A. But Michael's here today. Okay, he's wearing a mask. He's staying safe, which I think means you're protecting yourself from me here. But Michael's using this camera a little differently, and I want to show it because I think it's going to be a popular way to use the camera. All right, he's getting ready. Okay, so first of all, here's Michael. He's the producer, and he's got the camera set up right here in front of him, just to give you some reference. And he has the HDMI plugged into a capture card. So HDMI is a little different, uncompressed, right? It's actually totally 4K. And so why don't you use the remote control and show really quickly. So he has a 4K video input coming into Zoom. And he's just operating it with the IR remote. Why don't you zoom out real quick to show how wide it is and then do like a zoom in maybe. Actually, I have the presets. Oh, you have presets. So that's the wide angle. It's really 108 degrees wide. And so the presets can snap instantaneously. Or you can have the ability to drive the camera as if it was a PTZ camera. And so that's kind of the cool capability that you have regarding making it feel like a PTZ camera and actually having PTZ camera presets and controls inside a webcam. So really, really cool. The HuddleCam NDI version, this works with our IP joystick. It works with our smartphone apps. It works with OBS. It works with the TriCaster, vMix, Wirecast. So really, really popular and powerful solutions that it works with. Okay, so I think we've gotten to the point where we've had a chance to kind of do everything. I'm interested to hear what you guys think here in the Zoom session. How are you guys planning on using this? Have we stirred up any interesting ideas that you guys want to respond to? Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm calling from Manchester, New Hampshire. We are a trade association, and my job is to offer education and training to people in the construction industry. So, whoops, wrong side. I build an H, right? And one of the challenges that we're facing right now due to social distancing, et cetera, is that we aren't able to do a lot of our trainings. We also have several of our members who live in Vermont, and driving 3.5 hours to get to New Hampshire to take a training, it's just not conducive. So we're actually looking at incorporating this type of technology into our education center. And that could look a couple of different ways. We could have individuals sitting in the classroom doing social distancing, et cetera. I could have 9 people in the classroom, and then I could have 50 people kind of zooming in and participating that way. I run a leadership program, and we break people out into groups of 4. So I can see this technology being used to allow others to attend that, they may not be able to get off the job site to attend a training in person, but they could attend this way. And the zooming capability, when you're offering an OSHA 10, it's really valuable to be able to show, this is how you do this with this, and really to kind of be able to zoom in on this. I love this. So thank you.
Well, that is so refreshing to hear, Jennifer. Did you enter to win one? Because we're going to give one away in a moment.
I did. I think I put it out a couple of different places. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Because if we draw you to win, that would make me feel really happy because you're here and you're excited about it. So that's awesome.
I just want to say something. Jennifer's use case is so important. My husband actually works in this field. He's in industrial safety, and he and I have spoken a lot about using these cameras for those kind of training demonstrations. He still has drivers out there in the field. He's got to tell them how to load those trucks safely, and having this technology. Yep, Jennifer's shaking her head. So yeah, we totally understand using the cameras that way. So thank you.
Yeah, so if we have to have, I love that. If we have to have somebody sitting in a truck because they can't leave the job site, we need something that's going to make people who can't be there feel like they're there. And this looks like it's exactly what it's going to do.
You know, we just got off the webinar on higher education after COVID-19, just right before the show. And in the higher education vertical, this is also huge because you have all these teachers who they instantly moved higher education over to online learning, but that mitigated a lot of potential hiccups that could happen when you're trying to teach classes online, because the teachers are sitting at their desk and there's a webcam in front of them. No problem with the production value. They're not going to like accidentally get up and walk away from their desk while teaching, but they're coming back in the fall and they're going to be in these physical classrooms again. And they are not accustomed to video production at all. They haven't had a camera in a lot of these classrooms yet. And so now you start thinking about, okay, we're going to need to, we don't have a huge budget to upgrade every classroom with a full-on video production system and traditional auto tracking solutions. And also we have a concern that the teacher's going to forget their teaching and just walk away from the camera. And so I actually could see something like this being a perfect companion product to a lot of these low-cost, web conferencing appliances and video conferencing appliances that are starting to ship. Wolf Vision just came out with a little widget, and it's a web conferencing endpoint you can add to a system, but we don't have a camera for that. So we really need a low-cost camera you can plug in as an input to that sign app or whatever that is, and allow the teacher to just kind of get to work. And as long as they stay in that frame of view, it's huge. I mean, this could be it's the perfect time for you to launch this thing as far as I'm concerned. And I think the flexibility with both the NDI and the HDMI and USB, it's stellar. I think it's really a good product for what you're going to need, I think, moving forward in the fall.
Thank you for that, Michael. Yeah, please.
Does this camera track? Because I wasn't able to get on for the first couple of minutes, because one of the things when I'm teaching, I can't sit still. And if memory serves me correct, it does have kind of a tracking capability, and that's what we were just demonstrating with the ability to be able to use the gaming system stuff to be able to make sure that if I'm going to be going over here, that the system's going to be following me.
So this camera has something called auto framing, and so it is different than tracking. HuddleCamHD does have an auto tracking camera, so some folks might be able to see this. I can share this on the Zoom screen here, but essentially we do have an auto tracking camera. The issue is it's actually a lot more expensive. Auto tracking cameras generally have optical zoom, so they zoom in. So this camera is $3,000. So it's 10 times the price of the HuddleCamHD Pro, but this one can zoom in from 50 feet away, and literally it has two cameras. So it has one camera designed to follow the person, and then that little camera with the wide angle is the reference camera that steers the optical zoom camera on the top. But these are
actually
really
the camera I'm joined in from here. So this is what I'm using. Yeah, I've got this online. So we're going deep. There we go. Yeah, so I got you. So that's a demonstration of the camera he's talking about.
Jennifer, I mean, I can show you what I have set up here. I do training for a lot of the distributors. I work as a distributor, so I do training for integrators, and sometimes they ask me to do some training for their end users. And with this digital whiteboard, if I'm configured in a different way, because I set up my office in a couple different ways, if I put this camera on my other setup, I can walk to the screen, do my whiteboarding, and it will frame me correctly as if I'm standing there. And then when I go back to my PC, if that's simply what you need, then you don't need auto tracking. You just really just get by with using auto framing. So it will answer the question that you're looking for.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, there's a cool product I just put in the text menu that we saw at CES, and we got a couple of them in. They have a DSLR and an iPhone camera tracking system that's pretty reasonable. It's like $175 or something like that, and it does a really good job. We've put in a couple of the universities that we have here, because some of the professors tend to walk the stage all the time. But yeah, it's a pretty reasonable price and a pretty good quality camera tracking system.
And Paul, I just want to add that I do plan on pushing this to the limit, this camera. So my 17-year-old is a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo, and he's currently taking classes here in my family room. My family room operates as a music room. It operates as a family room, a video game room. Teaching happens during the day, or that's where they do their work. But at night, twice a week, it turns into karate instruction. So I will put this and zoom it out and set it to the auto framing and see how that will keep up with him and how he's instructing. So
that would be interesting to hear.
Like I said, we're gonna put it to the test and see what we can do. Saturdays, I set up the wide angle on his drum set so he can do his drum lessons with his teacher via Zoom as well. So
very cool. Well, I'm so excited. I have a party popper for this event that I'm gonna pop. Here we go. I was saving this. Come on.
Do
oh
it.
my God.
I hope this doesn't
like
a hospital trip. Oh, okay.
Okay, there we go. Woo.
How you doing?
Those are always fun to clean up. Hi, Patrick. Did you have a question?
Not at all. I'm just actually joining in because I saw the new camera and I'm really intrigued about it because I own two of your, well, I should say I've ordered two of your HuddleCam cameras for my church, and those units has worked perfectly. We've got your remote, and we're looking to add more to a new church building that we're going to build. So when I saw this come up on my email, I said, whoa, 4K and everything else that I'm hearing you guys talk about on the YouTube. I said, you know what? I got to get my information correct about this before I could give it to the guys that I use in my team, see if we're going to use it. Also, I may even want to use it in my home because I have two sections where I do a lot of streaming on. That's
awesome. So are you a pastor or a bishop?
No, not at all. I'm actually the tech for my actual business is that I'm a AV engineer. So for my church, I take care of all the technical needs, getting on the web stream and everything, order equipment. So like I said, with your product, I'm like happy with it 100% from day one. So to see this camera, I'm even more excited about this. So I'm just listening. If a question should pop in, believe me, I will say something.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. And I see our friend Dean Sir has just joined. Dean does a lot of live streaming as well. I know is more of a Mac user. I don't know if you have any questions, Dean, but Dean joined us a couple weeks ago, and he actually won a PTZ optics camera not long ago.
Fantastic.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to when we can get together in groups and use that. Thank you, Paul. No, I'm intrigued by the HuddleCam. I do mostly conference work, although it's certainly the applications that many of the other Zoomers have shared about in a small room and in a very small environment. I'm interested in using this as kind of a master capture shot. This is much more cost effective than a backup sort of a shot, back of the room perhaps. This is much more cost effective than the formal PTZ, full 360 cameras, and so balancing that out with the other cameras is exciting to us.
Now, Dean, you do a lot of event streaming. There's two models of this camera. So there's the NDI version, which is Ethernet, and then there's the USB version, which is plug and play. The Ethernet one, obviously, you can run 100 meters and power it over Ethernet. With the USB, you're a little bit tethered to a short USB connection. Which one do you think is going to fit better in your scenario?
Well, It would probably be the NDI, because that's just gives me more flexibility. If I'm doing back of the room, I'm usually in a production table near the front of the room or the side of the room. But I do have a little home studio. It's not where I am right now. I'm in my very messy office, covered up by a beautiful wherever the sunset is there. So I think that the NDI really gives us the most flexibility. It's a little more work if I'm going to use that, for example, in this kind of environment or a small studio environment, because you've got to have the hub there, the power over Ethernet hub. Well, not power over Ethernet, but you got to have a hub. But I've got networks where I am. So NDI is just more flexible for the broad base of what we're doing. But I can also see getting two of them, an NDI and a USB, for different purposes.
The main difference, and I know you and I have talked about this with USB, is if you do plug the camera into Zoom with USB, you have the opportunity to zoom in someone who has the camera. Tom, do you mind if I pick on you? Can I zoom in on your camera? All right, Tom, I got control of your camera. I'm going to zoom out first.
Wow.
So it's super wide. And you guys can see here, I have those PTZ controls there. So now I'm kind of looking around. Oh, nice guitar. Who's that? Oh, you have is that 50? You have a signed 50 Cent album, Tom? I think you're muted, by the way, Tom.
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. That is from my radio days.
Wow. Cool. All right, let me frame you up the way. I'll leave you where you were there, but just wanted to show how that works there. So you do have full PTZ control through Zoom, which I think, a lot of people are using Zoom, so it's not a bad thing to have.
And if you didn't think you had to wear pants to your official meetings before, now you know for sure you're going to need to be fully dressed.
That's a good point. You do have to accept the request. So you don't have, if you don't have any pants on, do not accept the request.
That's the words of wisdom to live by. I think those are pretty solid words.
What's actually something that you guys haven't touched upon, Paul, is the portability or the size of this, right? I'm completely in a, like I said, right now I have this set up in my work from home setup, right? Which is a Microsoft Surface. I have a Yamaha speaker, typical to what I would use if I was out and about. I want something that's portable. I want something that's light. It's not overly over the top huge. It's 4K. It does all these extra features. The package is pretty small. It will go into my messenger bag, and it will allow me to go into places where, you know what, maybe I don't want to sit and have a camera picking up the entire Starbucks. Now, I'll be correct. You won't catch me at a Starbucks, but wherever cafe I may be at, I don't want to catch everybody in the background, so I will zoom in. It's a nice little feature, and what is nice is I expected, honestly, when we said, hey, I got this camera coming out, I expected it to be a soundbar like complete, the size of my 13-inch screen that I'm looking at here. To see how nice and compact it is was a nice surprise. So the portability is going to come into play. And for the guys that were talking about using this as B-roll and having cost-effective solutions to sit in the back of a bigger space, part of traveling is also the space that these things require. And it doesn't look like it's going to take up a lot of space in the luggage or in the Pelican case, for that matter.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I do love the fact that, you're getting basically PTZ camera controls inside the form factor of a webcam. Guy, you've got a pretty good look at it right there. I'm gonna pin your video for a second. So you've got it right next to you. Of course, you're using the crispy Panasonic camera.
Yeah, just so you can see, next to my head, you can see how big it is. Or next to my daughter's head. Hey, Crowley, come here. You want to jump in? Look at my little kid's head. Oh, there you go. So they're pretty small. Say hi. Wave to all the people. Okay. Anyways, I am amazed at how small it is because, I didn't even think about traveling with them, but that just opens up a whole other world being able to do that. So very cool device. And then on the ePTZ, actually on the Zoom control, is that available on the 30X models as well?
So the ePTZ functionality, that is something we are getting requests for. but we don't have that available on. Now, I will say that we've had that question and we are working on building that into the firmware, because on the 12x, 20x, 30x cameras, if you have ePTZ control, it solves a lot of issues actually, because you could digitally zoom in a little bit if you're at the maximum of a 30x and you're getting some shake. So there's a lot of reasons why we want to build that in, and we are talking about doing that, but it's not there yet.
But so on the Zoom control though, so through Zoom to request the access, is that available on the 30x cameras?
Oh, okay. So that is a function of what's called UVC, and you have to have a USB connected camera. So the 12x and the 20x USBs that will work for. The 30x models only have SDI, so that Zoom control does not work. But it does work with the 12x and 20x's.
And
So
how many USB devices can you have hooked up to a single machine? So can we hook up like 5 of these to one machine and then use the Zoom switch camera keyboard shortcut to hop between angles? You
certainly can. It wasn't necessarily designed for that, as you know, with other video production softwares. But if you're going to do that, and that was my first video production multi-camera system that I ever built, was we actually put in 2, I think it was from StarTech, PCIe USB 3.0 cards that had individual PCIe lanes. Because the issue with cameras and USB connected computers is a lot of times, like, you'll have 3 inputs on the side of a laptop, but all 3 of those USB inputs share the same PCIe lane. And so there's a USB bandwidth bus issue when you're trying to do 1080p on all 3, for example. But if you're going to build a computer with a PCIe card, you can buy PCIe cards that support USB 3.0 with dedicated bandwidth channels, where you can have 4 or more USB inputs that can support the bandwidth for 1080p.
But you bring up a question I've been messing with this recently. When you connect enough USB cameras to something, is it just the bus, or is there also a power situation where, like, either computers or whatever just can't dole out enough power to multiple USB cameras?
Well, there certainly is a power requirement as well, especially with USB-C now providing enough power to power cameras completely. Like this camera that we've been looking at is 100% powered by USB. So you do have to look at the power requirements. Now, in Windows specifically, there's a little trick that you can look into, which is in your device manager. You can go in there and you can go into power settings, and you can force it to always give enough power for USB 3.0. And so this is where the issue becomes. So it's mainly with laptops. But if you have a laptop and you plug in a USB 2.0 connection to it, like a USB mouse, and then you unplug it and you plug a USB 3 in order to save power, it's a power management setting. Windows will actually, basically default to USB 2.0 and not deliver enough power, and it can become an issue. I'm guessing that's what you're referring to, Michael.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've just been dinking around with it, where I have to use different power distribution systems for my USB cameras because they just can't get enough juice out of my. But again, I'm using a high-powered laptop with a big GPU graphics card on it. So, but hey, I appreciate that. Thanks.
So if there's no other questions, I was going to give Michael a chance to talk about his new Wolf Vision distance learning control system that he has at the end of the session. So if there's any other questions about the HuddleCam Pro, I'm happy to answer
Paul,
them. Yeah, sure.
Paul, if you don't mind, another quick question. So kind of building on what Chris said about portability, one of the things that strikes me, and maybe you can comment on this, with the auto tracking. So as I sit right now, my camera is built into my laptop. So I'm either hunched over it or I'm looking up at my other monitor and so on, and trying to be sensitive to what you all are seeing. With the auto tracking, when I lean back in my chair, is it going to recenter me completely? And as I come closer and further, does it zoom with that, or is it just a PT with no zoom?
So it will zoom. So essentially the auto tracking functionality, the technology behind it, it's looking for 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. So if it sees 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth, it puts a box around it. And I'm not sure if there's more information that I don't know about in the manual on exactly how it works. Some of the best practices are to have, good lighting, obviously, and an uncomplex background behind you, but essentially it will zoom into you and frame you. So it's not tracking. It's not going to fluidly track you as you move, but it will make intelligent decisions on where it sees 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth, and it will zoom in, pan, and tilt. So it really does take full advantage of the electronic pan, tilt, zoom functionality in the camera. And then if it sees 2 faces in the scenario that you saw in the conference room, what it's trying to do is take that wide angle and zoom it in so that the 2 faces are framed in there. So it just happens automatically. And it uses the intelligence of what it gets on that wide angle field of view and uses the electronic pan, tilt, zoom to frame the 2 eyes, the nose, and the mouth that it sees.
Okay, great. And I noticed in the demo video in that conference room, I think there were 4 of you, and then 2 of you left the room, and it did not reframe. Is that something that we have control over or not?
So as it takes so that's why it's really different than auto tracking, where it's constantly making decisions. It takes a few seconds for it to snap and reframe. So there was a couple things we saw in that video. One was in demo mode, you saw the orange boxes around people's faces. So that is a mode where it doesn't actually do anything other than just show you what it sees. So it's nice for kind of troubleshooting, seeing what it's recognizing as a face. But then when you turn auto framing on, essentially, if 2 people leave, it's going to be there for a second, and then it's going to be like, all right, I'm still just seeing 2 faces over here. Then you might have seen it zoom a little bit and crop and go over to the 2 people. Then Julia left, and it took a second, and then whoop, it cropped automatically into frame. So I think Michael's getting us over there to that point again. So here's those boxes there.
Wow.
So it's finding each one of the 4 faces.
That's just the demo mode. So it's showing us the widest view and what it would see in that. We'd have to go into live mode to actually have it zoom in.
Yep. And so see, it did a little bit of a zoom there, a little bit of a pan, and a little bit of a tilt. And then Julia finally leaves and Michael cuts. It's okay. But that's basically what it does. There's a couple other questions in the chat. Kenny Hampton's asking the question, is it shipping? The answer to that is it's available for order. So yes, they are available to order. Is it backwards compatible with USB 2.0 ports? Yes. Now, this camera is 4K capable. So, 4K over USB 2 is going to be very difficult to use, but it does support H.264 compression. So you're going to want to have that on if you're using USB 2.0. So keep that in mind. What is the output of the IP base station? So the IP version of this camera obviously comes with an static IP address that's default, and you would want to set a static IP address of this camera. This camera will output NDI-HX, which is essentially a high efficiency NDI 4K video output. So 4K 30 video output compressed down to roughly 20 megabits per second. So these are really good for having, lots of cameras on your network where, you're running it on a gigabit or maybe a 5 or a 10 gigabit network. And, you're going to prepare to have 100, 200, 300 megabits available for 5 or 10 cameras on your network. I think that answers that question. Troy's asking, so in an educational example, could individual students zoom in on things they're interested in, or would that affect the image for all? That would affect the image for all. So essentially, if your organization is a school and you have Zoom, when we have a video about this, you do need to go into your Zoom dashboard and enable far end camera control. That won't come up unless you have that enabled. If that is enabled, not only can you control the PTZ camera or PTZ controls in the camera, but you can also switch cameras. So if you have multiple cameras, you can give the far end camera control the ability to switch between cameras. But that would be the image of the PTZ to everyone. So everyone would see the zooming in and out. What was the camera? Sorry, go ahead.
Could you show where that is in Zoom? Enable far end camera control. Could you do a share screen and
yeah,
or is
I
it?
can
Yeah,
show
I'd
that.
love to see it.
So that is something that a lot of people don't know about, and it's a great feature. Zoom has a lot of hidden features, to be honest, that are just a little bit hidden. They have so many features. But let me share my screen here. Here it is. Just gotta zoom in. Okay, gotta zoom into Zoom. So in the dashboard, we're gonna go to, I believe, trying to think here. It's in account settings. And we go down here, a lot of things in here, obviously. When you schedule a meeting, I'm going to go ahead and change a few things myself. Host video on, participant video on. There's a lot of good stuff in here. But once we go all the way down, there's so many, I might have to search for it. But there's one called far end camera control. And so right there at far end camera control, I have that enabled. And so I am the manager of our Zoom deployment here at our company. So I have the ability to turn that on for everybody. And now that you're joining a meeting that I'm hosting, I can grab controls from anyone, or at least request them.
That is so damn cool.
It is pretty cool, isn't it?
Quick question. You probably answered this already, but what's the maximum frame rate that this camera can do? Because I heard you say 30. I was wondering, does it go any higher than that?
30, it is just 30 frames a second. So it goes up to 4K at 30 frames a second. That is true with the NDI, that is true with USB, and it's true for HDMI as well.
Is there an option for the Huddle pair for this camera? Like a wireless?
So HuddleCam does offer something called the Huddle pair, which is a wide angle camera that includes a wireless speakerphone. And the Huddle pair does not include electronic pan tilt zoom. I would say that's where we're headed, because this whole electronic pan tilt zoom thing, Zoom, you're giving far end camera control with Zoom. And by the way, the flip side of this too is that if you have a Zoom room, so if you are deploying a Zoom room, you can also control the camera via the Zoom Room iPad. This is the Huddle pair that you're referring to. This is really popular, actually. It's a wide angle webcam that's USB 2.0 and a wireless speakerphone that are included together. So these are really popular. It's just one single USB 2.0 connection with a wireless speakerphone, and that's $499 for both. So it's a really popular camera, but it doesn't yet support the ePTZ controls. Unfortunately, it's actually manual pan and tilt, because it's kind of like a huddle room situation. But I think once we get to 4K on the Huddle pair, I would imagine that we would put that ePTZ functionality in there. 4K is becoming more important, but it's not really realistic with Zoom, limited bandwidth, infrastructure for video production gear. So it's nice to have the 4K sensor and lens, but the ability to use it for digital pan tilt zoom. So you can set the output to this thing. When you plug this into Zoom, Zoom's gonna pull it in at 720, maybe 640 by 480. But you've still got that whole large 4K sensor that you can electronically pan tilt and zoom with. The included IR remote control, which is really super easy, but also the HuddleCamHD software, Zoom. There's a lot of great pieces of software. Plus, with the we're working on some new stuff, but there's the smartphone app that you can use with the NDI version. So a lot of cool control options for a webcam that starts at just $299.
Wow, that's really great.
Silly question. And you can
Yeah.
tell me if it's true or not.
Okay.
Can you attach the USB portion to a power bank
Yes,
and
you
power
can.
through a power bank?
So that is actually the suggested way to use this camera with HDMI. So a lot of folks like the clean HDMI 4K 30. It's HDMI 1.4. So if you just want HDMI to a Blackmagic switcher or something of that nature, you can, but you do need to power it over USB. So that would be that power bank option.
But the power bank, like a portable power bank, because now you're just making it a single wireless HDMI connection. I can locate a camera now anywhere, even if power is not available.
It's a good point. I never thought about that. I don't think it draws much power either. But yeah, I'm sure you could use a little USB power bank. I haven't tested that. I don't see why that wouldn't work though, because that you're just using it for power.
Well, now you're giving me something to play with this weekend. Thank you.
That's interesting. I wonder how much it draws. I mean, you can look in the specs, but that's a really crazy, cool idea. And there's got to be something, even if you had like a smaller portable, like not a generator, but like something of size, you should totally.
I got a 22,000 little milliamp power brick thing. It's like the biggest you can buy before the TSA will take it from you if you're traveling. I'm gonna give it a shot. Why not?
Yeah, I'd really love to see that.
Yeah, let's hook it into the live view, and then we'll walk around. This will be our point of view camera for.
We actually power a lot of our we do a lot of iOS devices like with Sling Studios, and we power all those cameras with the power bank like this.
Yeah.
So that's how we do it. We run all our cameras through a little power bank like this, and this has 4 connections on it. I can put 4 cameras on this, and it powers them for 4 iPhones, or 3 iPhones and an iPad, 3 iPhones and an iPad for 3 hours.
Yeah, well, you can't assemble a group like this and not get weird and crazy ideas like that. Come on now.
Right. Well, I want to know, you're using these multiple iPhones in that power bank as your cameras. You're using the 4K cameras on your Apple devices as your capture cameras for events, like, so it is kind of portable, sort of like what Chris was saying.
Yeah, so we do, like, we've done a 3 and 4 camera shoot with the Sling Studio. It's a really nice little device. You know, $1,000 for the server, and I can put 4 cameras on it easy. It does graphics and all that stuff, and it's really easy. We just pop that up, and it fits all in a little road case that we have. So we have the power bank, the 4 iPhone 11s, the Sling Studio, all that. We also have another case where we can put DSLR cameras, because they have the power bank that turns DSLR cameras, or we use our Blackmagic 6K cameras. We've actually used the PTZ camera. I sent Paul an image. We were at a show called DreamHack, and we used the PTZ camera, one of the PTZ optics cameras, with 2 iPhones at the DreamHack conference, which is an esports conference in Anaheim. And we were doing video interviews and stuff like that. And we had a little intern controlling the cameras. And it was a very nice little spot. It fits in a nice little road case. Popped up pretty easy. We had a big backdrop. It was fun.
I mean, I asked the question because I've been doing video production a lot recently in this little studio here, just commercials and stuff. And I turned to like using my smartphone, but it's a pain because I've got to then convert all the video content out of my smartphone back into a format that I can then input into my computer for Premiere Pro and all that jazz. And I think a camera like this would be ideal. It's has the same value, even less expensive than an iPhone for a 4K camera that I can then input directly into my computer. And I think some of those cool tracking features could actually be really helpful. So I'm curious what the deal is, Mr. Richards, for friends and family. How does that work if we want to put them in our own studios?
Well, I'm really excited to get everyone involved. In fact, we're going to give a free camera away right now. So I got to do that. I know a lot of people are waiting. So Todd Hughes is the first winner that I've pulled. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull some winners. I'm going to put them in. Todd Hughes is here. All right, Todd. Todd is here. Wow, that was easy. From Beaver Creek, Pennsylvania. So you could actually pick this thing up practically. I think that's on the west side of Pennsylvania. So Todd is here. Todd, if you want to join our Zoom call and say what you're going to use it for, that would be awesome. Michael, I'm going to kick it over to you because Michael has been waiting. We've been wanting to talk about the brand new Sign App application for a while. Michael, why don't you tell us about what you have over there?
Well, there's a cool relationship between Wolf Vision and HuddleCamHD. And so Wolf Vision's been making these kind of recording appliances, sort of all-in-one capture appliances. So you can connect multiple HDMI cameras to our device, USB cameras to our device, and use it as an encoder to stream your content out to Twitch or Restream.io. You can wirelessly mirror to our device. But we've kind of had this collaboration going on where I've had the HuddleCam tech in our studio lab and connecting it and testing it and demonstrating how that can work in higher education and corporate. And then Paul's had our Sign App at your shop, and we were able to participate in the Stream Geek Summit in New York City. So it's a really cool time to be in not only this section of the industry, but also to have products that work well together like this. And it seems like even more so now, where the whole world has realized I've got to find a way to enable whatever's happening live to be viewable and accessible to an audience that's not in person. And I think the marriage between these two technologies is just fantastic. So you asked about the Sign App. We have full devices that are super capable of connecting lots of inputs and then simultaneously, recording that content, sharing it on a video conference, and then streaming it out in real time. And I can do all that at the same time. But more so, we also came out with some smaller devices that are really suited for just web conferencing. So you kind of drop it into an existing AV system, and then you can call into Zoom, BlueJeans, Team, any web conferencing platform, and you're going to need a USB camera microphone to accommodate. So in terms of how do I add that web conferencing component to an existing system, it sounds like, this new camera and maybe one of our Pure Pro devices could be a nice little clean kit that you can kind of just drop into an existing rack or existing system design without having to kind of gut and replace everything. So
I love it. Well, we're going to have to get one of those new, what did you call it? The Pure Pro?
Yeah. It's the size of a Nook almost, but basically it's enables you to launch a web conference and call into a meeting, and then you can wirelessly present from other devices into that meeting. So kind of come back to that application of maybe I do want to use the camera on a cell phone. I can just wirelessly mirror 4 cameras live into that Pure Pro and then be sharing that out on the web conference. And so I've got my handheld high definition camera that I'm moving around a live event, sort of streaming whatever I'm capturing out of that camera wirelessly into this widget that's then streaming it off, either in a video conference or some other format.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm going to have to get you one of these to test it. And I'm really, really excited about it. It looks like Todd Hughes got here, and Todd Hughes just won a brand new camera. Are you here, Todd?
I am here.
Congratulations, buddy. What are you going to...
I am so excited.
So you're from Beaver Creek, Pennsylvania?
Beaver Falls.
Beaver Falls. Where is that?
Yep. We're about 45 minutes northwest of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Right by the Ohio line.
Very cool. And so what are you thinking about using this new webcam? Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, I'm actually the technology designer for Duquesne University, and we're going to use it in classrooms. So we're going to put it on a mic stand, and the thing we're excited about is professors forget to zoom in and pan and tilt. Student can have access to it, and a student in the class or a FAR student can actually follow the class rather than the professor having to do that.
Well, that sounds like a great application. So if you're thinking about that, I'm assuming you're looking for the USB version, which would support the UVC control. Correct. With Zoom.
Correct.
Very cool.
USB HDMI.
Well, I'm so happy for you.
Thanks. Me
congratulations. It's always fun and I hope that you can come to more of our shows and be part of it, and we can keep in touch and see what you're doing over there at Duquesne University.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Thank you. This has been awesome.
Well, we'll get in touch soon because we obviously need to do that. Michael, I'll be in touch with you soon as well. so we can get those products tested, and I want to make sure that they're working together. Are there any last questions before we wrap it up?
You might have covered this already, but what's the range for the microphone?
That is a great question, and my mind is going haywire to the answer to that, because I know it's on the data sheet. I don't want to be wrong, but I would say it's in the neighborhood of like, up to 15 feet, roughly. So it's designed for like small to medium-sized conference rooms. The closer you are, the better it is, because it has a beam-forming microphone array so that it can actually kind of beam in on the audio that you're saying. So the closer you are, the better it'll sound.
If you're doing HDMI to a capture, would the microphone signal also go through, or is that like separate?
That is a great question. And I believe, I'm trying to remember, because I should be able to pull this up actually with the remote, and we could actually see this really quickly. Could you hand me that remote, Mike? So this camera here is actually controlling this. Okay, so this should work. Let's see here. Just double check. Okay, so I have one of the webcams right here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit the menu, and hopefully this won't. It's working. It's not getting into the other cameras. Okay.
Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
Yes.
I believe that audio is intelligible audio up to 10 feet away. Does that sound about right?
That sounds right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's this audio enable button here. When you switch that, the camera reboots for a second. So it can be off and on, but I can't remember if it if it embeds over the HDMI. I can't remember now. I apologize.
So would it work with a headphone set?
It does not have an audio input. So it just works with the built-in microphones that are there.
So I guess along those lines, no, never mind. I was thinking about ceiling mounted speakers and whatnot, but never mind.
Well, I'm only asking because we would have to run the cable HDMI 3, trying to get it to a long distance. And I was thinking, I could put like a HDMI transmitter receiver and kind of use that as a way to send or long HDMI cables depending on the room, and then capture it to the USB. Because USB 3 transmission long distance, those systems or cables or devices are very expensive. So budget wise, trying to.
I just got an answer on that. It does not embed the audio over HDMI, only USB.
I'll have to get a separate microphone. Okay.
Dean's saying he's got a slightly different configuration for the 360-degree video tracking. Great audio is the Meeting Owl. Let's take a look at that.
It's just another product to look at. I think what you guys are doing and the way you've integrated your products, you might learn and build on some of the things that those folks are doing. Different application. They put them in the center of the table as opposed to at the end of the table.
Yeah, it follows your voice, and it's like a 360 camera. Lenovo also has a 360, a smaller version of something similar, with built-in, which I think is about $300, which does the same thing, and but it's a push button where you could say quad view or gallery view, but you still got to press the button. But it does the 360 also.
Yeah, and this is a more expensive solution, but just hijack your show, Paul. I think what you've got with the HuddleCams is ideal for a whole wide variety of applications at the price point, performance point, and the tracking and the zoom, portability, all those things going for you.
Yeah,
I really do think that high resolution, 4K shot where we're then cropping our 1080 signal out from that is the way of the future. And I think we're probably going to see eventually the 8K camera that, can then, in a sense, the higher the res, the more we can zoom, right? You can zoom in on just one smaller section and still get that 1080p signal out of it. So I really think this is the way. Getting rid of for those of us that have been doing video conferencing forever, these pan, tilt, zoom motor mechanisms are frustrating. They break down, and it takes time to pan. And then I think you know, we've seen some cameras too where that transition from it was shooting in this area and now it transitions smoothly over to this other cropped area. So you don't have to like watch the camera slowly pan across the room and everybody gets nauseous. I really think that this is the way of the future. So kudos to HuddleCam for coming out with something that's really, I mean, the best price point I think I've seen for something that's as powerful as this thing. So yeah, I'm looking forward to testing it.
Well, it's so great to hear everybody say so many nice things about it. These are available for order. So let me know, let our team know if you're interested in testing one out, trying it out. You know, we're so excited to have this launch party. I think that's where we're going to wrap it up, everybody. Thank you so much for joining and spending so much time with us. It's been a pleasure. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Great chat.
Good job.
Definitely.
Bye.
Bye.